actually much better than the one we had before.
Oh, yeah. So.
Okay. Can you check? We should be on air. It's our Google TV weekly office hour hangout. Waiting for people to come drop in.
Do you need to invite them?
I should have already invited them. There's the first one. Hey, Chris.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, Raphael. I see you're wearing the matching T-shirt.
Yeah.
So we have Chris, we have Mr. Leegee. Never know, how do you... Hey, welcome. How do you pronounce your name? Leegee? Leegee? So today I, for the first time, have over-the-air Hangout enabled. So we're actually recording it. We will be broadcasting it later. I've invited most of the usual suspects, specifically the people who posted questions on the comments. Let's see. Let's give it another minute or so. I'm going to pull up the original announcement. Okay. So I have the questions up, and we have our Hangout. Good. So let's start with a couple, well, the usual people here. We have Osama, we have Paul, we have myself, and then I think on the Hangout we know most of the people here. So today, I would say at the end, I'll take a couple minutes and we review some of the apps. I've preloaded the Smarty for TV app, and I've also taken a look at the TV tweets, so you can take a look at that. About the questions, so I know that Nicholas, you have asked quite a long question about YouTube videos, and so on. I don't know, do you want to just restate the question for everyone else who's watching the broadcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So early on last year, there was a lot of discussion on RTSP support. We noticed that it wasn't supported on Google TV. Noticed that there's been some issues even with Ice Cream Sandwich and RTSP, and then it came up, not too recent, but HLS was the preferred method. In the past, we've been able to launch YouTube videos or embed YouTube videos within our own application using two different URLs that are no longer available by YouTube. One of them, get_video, was the endpoint. The other one was, the only one that's left available now through the API is an RTSP feed. So my question really is that by design? Is Google looking to limit the ability or restrict the ability to embed YouTube content within custom applications and encouraging the use of just calling the YouTube intent?
So you want to talk a little bit to it? I know the technical background, how we used to do this. So basically the question is, what's our strategy for embedding YouTube content? And I know we're working on a long-term solution.
Yeah, right now, apart from finding an intent to the YouTube app, there is no other easy way to embed high-def content in your Android app. But that is another request that we hear frequently from developers using YouTube. So it is something that we're trying to address.
Okay, so it won't be like short answer is it won't be like this for terribly long. It's something that you're looking at handling.
Well, as always, I can't promise anything. Just that it's something that we hope to improve. I can't give you any timelines. Well, as always, I can't promise anything. Just that it's something that we hope to improve. There's an echo. I can't give you any timelines. Well, as always, I can't promise anything. Just that it's something that we hope to improve.
So it looks like somebody's having an echo. I don't know. Or somebody's listening to audio. Is that you, Leon? Hey. So maybe just mute it. Mr. Ligi, have you got the email with the IMTV APK that I sent you on Monday? Actually, I remember seeing an email from you. I just went by the comments today. Apologies. Yeah, maybe we can do that for next time we do reviews. It would have been better to have it in the comments.
Sorry, Christian. The reason I joined, I was actually want to kind of follow up on the YouTube thing. So if there isn't a way for developers to do the high-def content, so how does apps like the Redux app, how do they do it? Because most of their videos are YouTube videos, and they definitely are HD.
I don't know. Redux. I don't know where Redux is getting their content from.
They may or may not have some APIs. I don't know.
Because I can see the YouTube watermark on some of the, in fact, most of the videos show a YouTube watermark. You don't see the typical YouTube player. So obviously they've got their own player, but the videos appear to be coming from YouTube.
Yeah. So there is it's the YouTube Iframe API, which is a way that actually developers can get access to HTML content or video content. Actually getting that to work with Android is kind of something left for the developer, though. So unfortunately, no easy solution there.
Yeah, so I second that no easy solution. Fortunately, I was able to get it working, which leads to another question here. And it was tough. I had to pull a lot of information out of the video properties JSON object that was returned to the API. And if you dig enough, you can actually find the HLS stream that you can pull from. But my question now is, since I've done that, am I required to throw a YouTube icon on that playback, because I don't have that right now? Or am I going to face some licensing issues for pulling content from YouTube?
So you should review YouTube's terms of service. We can't offer any specific advice on whether you are or not in violation of them.
Okay.
And just a quick note about the YouTube iframe API is that it is an experimental API, and they actually put that in the documentation as well. So just be aware that it's may not be around indefinitely. But like Osama said, there's looking into other alternatives.
So I used to work for a company that actually had some kind of business arrangement with Google to get access to a special API, and this was also for a kind of an embedded device. Do you know if that is still around? That's still available for developers?
So I would say those are really good questions for some of the YouTube developer relations counterparts.
Okay.
So yeah, I would suggest, if you could start with some of our business development guys, like with Jen, and see what she can help you with. The other solution is we can get you in touch with some of our YouTube counterparts. In case any of you are over at South by Southwest next week, there is actually Les is going to talk a little bit more about this, since this is a very frequent request from developers. So we're working hard to find ways to enable developers for this.
Okay, thanks.
So I don't know, Nicholas, did that answer most of your questions around that?
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much. I do have a question on contact information. You said it was Jen, right? It was in the Hangout last week?
Yes.
Is there contact information available?
I think we have a mailing list for that. How would people get a hold of Jen usually? Content?
I think GTV Help is our business development team.
Yeah, so
Is that right? Yeah.
GVHelp at Google.
I don't know if there's a dash there. Is it one word? I think it's one word.
Okay. So, you know what, Nicholas, if you post that down in the comments, I'll respond later in the comments. Otherwise, the best guess without browsing through my email right now is GTVHelp at Google.
Yeah, that's the one. So partnering queries.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see what else we had. So let me go back, look at the questions that were in the comments. So we talked about HLS, YouTube. Oh, so the next question, Nicholas, that you had was Google TV and Movies API. So you pointed out that image view stops loading while the user is moving the selector, prioritizing the UI thread, and so on. And also, you were asking about loading image views in the on-post execute async task. So I can give a little bit more background on that. So we are actually working on a sample app right now to show how to handle large images. And what the sample app effectively does is it uses the Picasa Web API, loads. It's basically a slideshow app with a little bit of a grid view. And we were experimenting quite a bit with async task and other methods to do this. And my current recommendation, what I would really say is using async task. One of the challenges is all the async tasks are actually sequential, and it slows down the loading, actually. It's nice if you have a mobile device where when you access the network, you don't really have, I want to say, megabits of total bandwidth. On a Google TV, where you have typically 5 megabits or more, you can easily load a large number of images parallel. So what we did is we actually used our own thread pooling for that, and we actually didn't use async task for that. I don't know exactly how the TVs and Movies app does it, but I think async task is nice. It's a very convenient method of doing it, but if you want the best possible performance, you may want to do a little bit of your own thread pooling there.
Yeah, I ended up going with the executor service, which seemed to help because then I could really constrain the thread pool. But I really like the way the TV and Movies app, I mean, it gives priority to the user, which is great because it's extremely responsive. And as you've seen before in our app, we load a lot of images. You know, we've tried caching the image, reducing the size, several different techniques, but we can't figure out a way that we could accomplish something similar where we give priority to that UI thread. So will that something similar be in that sample app where we can prioritize that?
So the sample app, it does some caching on the local drive. It does not do a lot of, I want to say, cache management. So the focus of the sample app, it was actually showing transitions. So one of the new features that comes in the new update that's right now out for Sony devices is hardware acceleration for things like image transitions. So what I wanted to show off is really just writing a simple slideshow app. Basically the thread pooling and all this, that was just a side effect of making it responsive. Yeah, so I don't really have insight into how the TV and Movies app did it. What I can do is I can just send them an email and say if they have some best practices, something that's easy, but I would venture to guess that they put a lot of time into optimizing it. So TV and Movies app, it's one of the key UI pieces of Google TV. So the team has probably spent quite a while polishing it and tweaking it. But definitely a good point. I always like to point out when developers, try to decide which UI to use, how to create their apps. Take a look at some of our apps. And we have done a lot of field trials. We have done a lot of user studies. So there is definitely a couple good gems in there that you can use as inspiration.
So the app you mentioned that you were loading the big images, was that the app that you guys open sourced last week? That was Panorama or Panoramio, something like that?
Panoramio, that was a different app. So Panoramio, that was done to show things like the notifications and also some of the web APIs. So the one that we're doing this week, or not this week, I'm reviewing it right now, so we're fixing up the comments and making it pretty. But once we have the source code out, the intention of this one was really to show image transitions.
Okay.
And one of the challenges, I already apologize for it, it won't run again on the review devices, on the current version of review. It's going to be a Sony, basically targeted for the Sony devices.
Yeah, that would be great if you can ask the teams like the TV and Movies, or if you have other internal teams for recommendations and best practices. That would be extremely helpful. Even if they don't offer up any code examples, just some pointers here and there would be tremendously useful.
Yeah, I'll talk with them.
Great, thank you.
Let's see what else we had. So there was one comment from Dustin about reviewing GTV Box or Socialize TV. So I apologize, I have not had time to set up the whole SMB infrastructure here to test the app. Also, Socialize, yeah, I feel like we've already taken a look at it. I don't think, or I don't know if there was any major update to the app. Maybe if there is some more UI changes to it, we can take a look at it again.
There was a lot of, I appreciate you spending the time that last time. I don't expect you to review it again because there's plenty of other apps that you can point out. There's been a lot of background changes around the topics we just talked about, async tasks and caching. So if you could have the team internally maybe offline, just so we don't take up all your time, offline review that and let me know if they have any pointers for me. There was a pretty major update pushed, so whenever you get around, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so Paul, I don't know if you can take a mental note, Socialize. Maybe let's take another look at it. Okay. So any other questions over the air here? Otherwise, I would say let's start looking at a couple of the apps and let's see how they look like.
Maybe just one question. Being a developer outside the US, it's a little bit difficult to keep the devices up to date, being that all the market stuff is region limited. Is there any way we can get around that for developers to, like, I can't test against the YouTube app that's up to date. I have to go and pull APKs from someone else. It's somewhat annoying.
No, there's no way that we can tell you on how to circumvent market.
Yeah. That's frustrating.
That said, I didn't know that our YouTube app is currently US restricted. I know a lot of stuff is US restricted currently because we're only available in the US.
Yeah, TVs and movies and stuff just won't update.
Yeah.
They don't ask. So.
So I think there is a plan to change the restriction level on those apps, and I'll check with the team this afternoon to see what, if any reason, we still have to restrict it to US at this point.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Alex, specifically, which country are you actually pulling the apps from?
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. Yeah, so it might be worthwhile just looking into it.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Leahy is typing in the chat. Okay. Well, hey, everyone. Russia, yeah.
Should we review some apps?
Let's go review some apps. So let me change the camera over. See how we can do that. It's going to look really great on the YouTube video later. Yeah, this is a great feature of our Hangout that we actually see it all mirrored.
Back up.
I can just, I was going to move it up a little bit. It's really fun when you do this mirrored display. Okay, awesome. Here's our high-tech solution to HDMI input. So let's do the Smarty TV one first. So the thing that I like about it starts out with music. I think that's great on TV. People usually want some multimedia. It also does little animation when it comes up, so I think that's good.
The font sizes are good. They're readable from far away.
Should not turn it off though. So, yeah, definitely font sizes. It's also D-pad navigable. I think high contrast colors is good. See, here's the achievements.
A little cut off.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to point out when I do the review here right now, we have set the overscan basically to the smallest possible size. So this is the worst case scenario. I know that on a regular TV, when you do this for development, it looks probably better. So I wouldn't say this is like a total, it's not a total game killer, but just keep it in mind. Let's go into settings. Looks good. Maybe the font here on the default button is a little bit small, so you can't probably read. Yeah, you can't see that online. It's really small on TV. But compared to the back button, the default here, and when I click on it, then it gets pretty small. I think it looks good. Just maybe you can reskin those list views, make them feel a little bit more at home in your app. I think there's always a back and forth discussion whether you should use the default themes. Since you have in your app, you've chosen to have your own look and feel, different color scheme, background, large fonts. I would go for consistency and maybe have different assets for the checkboxes here and for your list views. So, yeah, they don't, like the user don't feel like this is completely outside of your app.
So, Christian, is there like a minimum size font that you would recommend for the TV?
I think it's in our UI guidelines. It used to be something like, I think it was 16, 18, and 21. That's the sizes that we use in our own apps. So this is clearly bigger than our own apps.
Yeah.
So if you, for comparison, let's pull up something that's Google TV. So this is basically the TV font sizes that we use in our apps. I believe the recent apps, if I'm not mistaken, is 16, this is 18, and then 21 would be for really large. I may be off by 2 on each direction, so check the UI guidelines.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to use the theme font sizes. So you can actually access the font for the theme sizes using the Android style, like text appearance medium, small, medium, large. And TV medium actually scales up relatively well.
Yeah.
For general text, and large is actually good for headers.
Yeah. I just think, I mean, for something like this game here, if you consciously basically scale everything up to make it look good on TV, I would say larger is okay. I would say don't go smaller than the system fonts that Paul mentioned. See what else we got here. I mean, I think the font sizes are consistent. We're looking at this right now on a relatively small TV. If you look at it on a 60-inch TV, they will be very large, but on a TV, I always like to err on the side of making things bigger than smaller. Okay, so let's start a new game. Question 1. So, looks good. I think the font sizes are still good.
TV series Sex and the City.
Might be a nice feature here to be able to use the number keys to actually answer.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the
Yeah,
other
thank
thing,
you for this response. It's very useful, I think, here.
yeah, or in this case, I would assume, for example, if I press D, it would go to option number D, which it doesn't. So I have to use the D-pad. I think the D-pad is definitely great. I mean, it would be horrible if I would have to use the mouse for it. That would be bad. I think the D-pad is a good way to do it. Oh, okay. That's not so good. Again, this is the screen size. So I would just say, try it out, maybe adjust it. This is the worst case scenario. But even in worst case, for example here where the your and the X overlays, you might want to try float this a little bit different in your layouts.
Yeah, it looks like you have the extreme overscan settings, because I've tested on other
Yes.
devices, and in the real life it's pretty good looking on every device that have
Yes.
even a 5% overscan.
Yeah, so I have usually, just to make sure I see the worst case scenario, I usually set it to the smallest possible. So see, in my picture size, so this is basically the overscan. I just use the default.
I'm doing the game now on a 32-inch, and the X in the circle and all that, it's positioned perfectly under your winnings. It doesn't cover anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a certain percentage of users, though, that actually have the maximum overscan settings. It is kind of the minority for sure, but it's something you always do want to test for and kind of try to support if possible.
Okay.
It's one of the challenges is, since this is sort of the default out-of-the-box experience, I think there is probably a few TVs out there that actually need the maximum overscan, but there is probably a larger number of people who just accept the default and just click through the all the default dialogues, and they will end up with the maximum overscan if they need it or not. So they're out there. Okay, new game. Yeah, so other than that, I think the game makes sense. I mean, it works fairly well. Nice statistics. Kind of a nice touch. You can get extra hints.
See, some of the maybe some of the icons on here, they don't necessarily look like buttons. Like the one, the save on the left in particular, looks more like kind of a generic icon. I mean, I probably.
It's an interesting point. Yeah, users may not be aware that they can click that. For example, the -2. I would not have associated that with a button at first. I would have said, well, what is -2? I don't know. Did I screw something up?
Because in most of the rest of the app, it has a pretty consistent button look. I mean, you use the orange background with the kind of the white text. So at this point, the user's kind of trained on that.
Okay, so do you suggest me to have something like introduction when the first time the new game was started, or because I have the rules in the main menu, and there are all the rules, and I know that someone could not read that, but although.
I think in general the app looks very good and works really well on TV. So these are just sort of minor improvements.
Yeah.
I think with that rules one, you could probably make your scroll region a little bit bigger. You seem to be wasting a lot of space with that huge back button. Because you're using a third of the screen to display rules and back. You could probably make that a fair bit smaller, so you could have more of the rules on screen at once.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to, you could also make the font size a little bit smaller here. One other thing, and as Osama said, I mean, we're really just, it's between good and perfect at this point, but one other option would be when the user starts the application the first time, and basically when they try to play the first time, you could display the rules and then maybe have a button that says, oh, don't show this again, or so. You can keep state of it. So just to make sure that the first time the user actually has it on screen and scrolls through. You can pretty much count on half the people still not reading it, but at least it was on the screen.
Yeah.
What does that middle button do?
Other than that, I would say it's pretty good. Is that actually one of our featured apps? Or yeah,
It is currently, yeah.
yeah. So it's already featured in market.
Yeah. Thank you, Christian. And I want to ask one question about the featured and market. This game was released in the the Thursday when the Android market was available for Google TVs. So it was very quickly featured, and it was in the highlighted section on the top for a week or maybe so. Then it was just put it on the featured app section, and it is there for a long time. So my question is, if an application or game once reached that top highlighted section where is 3 or 4 apps are shown, is there any chance to come back again to this highlighted section?
Potentially, we don't typically feature things more than once unless the application has had a major update, so it has some new content or some new features that would warrant it moving up to the what we call the hero banner. So that's sort of our typical policy.
So here's go the second question. For example, tomorrow or next week, I'll release this exactly game with some improvements, but completely free. This one is a paid game, and I will release the completely free version, especially for Google TV. So will this version of the game be able to be featured, or it will be like just other apps?
Send us a note and we'll take a look. But typically, no, we only feature either the paid or free version of a particular app.
Okay. Yeah. And the third question about the maybe more about advertisements in the Google TV apps. So as I see, the best practices for now for Google TV apps are paid apps or in-app billing. But for example, in the smartphones and tablets, I use very hardly AdMob advertisement system, and I really liked it. But what do you think the best way to monetize my this, for example, app on Google TV? Because for this game I really want to give it for free, but I don't think right now that AdMob is right way for Google TV, because it's not very good sizes adopts on Google TV right now. And what do you think? What do you think about advertisements like AdMob on Google TV apps?
Yeah, so we do plan to release some an article on monetization strategies for TV sometime, hopefully this month, which should hopefully have some pointers for you. But in general, I think the best monetization strategy we've seen for apps like this is unlocking additional content through in-app purchases.
Okay, thank you.
It's, I think, something that Raphael has done. We're just admiring your Google Plus video stream here.
I was going to say, at this point, it maybe worth thinking about just trying to gain like installs market share kind of thing. I mean, there's not that many users compared to, say, Android devices. It's possibly just a good time to try and get as many users as you can and then do monetization later on. I mean, yeah, just my thought.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a trend in, between freemium versus premium applications. Premium tends to actually earn developers more money, and it's kind of a growing trend over the last couple of years. So, if you're interested in, doing something with in-app billing, potentially, adding, let's say, additional questions or additional features in your app, if the user kind of pays a little bit of cash, then it's potentially worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ideas, for example, for monetizing this, you could have different themes. So I think right now your questions are just very broad and general. You could have the, I don't know, football theme, or maybe some whatever localized version where you say this is the Hollywood version, this is the whatever. And so people could play the general version for free, but if they want to have a special version, I don't know if they would be willing to pay for that, but might be an interesting approach. Maybe another idea could be things like, I think you have the on-screen help right now. Give them whatever, 5 or 6 per day for free. If they want more, it costs like a few cents. Again.
I've been playing a game lately that I'm slightly addicted to, and what they do is they have actually limited turns in the free version. So you can play the game, and you can do like, let's say 15 rounds or something like that. You can pay a little bit of extra money to actually get unlimited rounds. And they have another feature as well where you can actually pay a little bit of money to get things like hints or kind of extra unlocked content and that sort of thing. So they actually are using just multiple different kind of in-app building strategies, which is kind of neat. So.
Yeah, we've also made a change this week for our app because up to now we've had, the app is free and it has in-app billing for certain features, but we decided to do a little bit of an experiment just to see what the ratio is between people who install and people who pay. So we've got some good numbers up to now, and we decided to kind of open up the feature for 7 days, and then these can decide whether they want to purchase it or not. So the previous version, you actually had to pay to even kind of play around with the feature. Mm-hmm. So hopefully in a week or so, we'll start getting some data to see if that variation gives us a better kind of ratio for people who purchase the feature.
I saw something interesting a while ago in one of the Android developer Hangouts. They were saying that the best point they found for trying to persuade users to buy a feature after getting to play with it was about 8 minutes in, but maybe 8 minutes can be 8 days for TV. It's a bit of a different platform.
Yeah, I mean, for us at the moment, it's really about getting data, just trying to see which strategy works. So, I agree with what you said earlier. The numbers are still very low. So this is, still early days. But for us, it's about trying to see which variation gives us the better strategy, and maybe we should have multiple strategies. I don't know yet. It seems like the TV is quite different from the mobile approach, but we still have to learn.
Yep. So we have another little bit more than 10 minutes. So should we go over to the Twitter app and take a look at that?
Sure.
So let's get back on television. So when we looked at this earlier, so the first thing that came to mind was there should be a way to make this here simpler. There's a lot of buttons on the screen right now. I would encourage you to test this with your in-laws. See if your mother-in-law can figure out how to use it. That's usually a good test. I think the one thing that confused me is there is a setup and there is a menu on the top. So the menu does some things. The setup does... Actually, this is interesting too. So this is an interesting focus handling issue. So I'm focused on the menu right now. I'm pressing D-pad down once. I would really expect it should go to setup. So I have to go left and then up. And then I can go to setup, and there's a lot more options. I think for a lot of applications, it's difficult to make them simple to use, but I think that's really the challenge for developers, is trying to hide the complexity behind something a lot more simpler. So as far as I understand, what you do here is you basically, you offer up a tutorial. So the top 3 or 4 buttons, that could be sort of the start screen. And then from there you could go into the trending section. So the next row of buttons here, 8 buttons, that could be a separate screen again. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of the press S, T, or Control to bring up a new search, press U to update, press O to open links and tweets, and so on. I mean, that starts getting really complex. Other than that, I don't know. Any more feedback from you guys?
Does this app do the same thing as social TV? The one from Will, where it displays tweets while watching TV?
I think it does something similar, yeah. So you can turn on the tweets, you can go to live TV, and it overlays it.
Yeah, it does the same thing.
Yeah.
I guess as far as to similarity, since both apps did the same thing, Will did a pretty good job on the setup page or the home page, where he listed all those buttons that we're seeing here in a very user-friendly way. So I would just, say thumbs up to that. This developer can clean up that home page.
Yeah,
it just makes it easier for the public to navigate and make use of your app rather than trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, I also think in general, I mean, as a developer, you have to ask yourself, what's the value out of this over the other? So having kind of differentiating yourself by great user interface. I don't know who actually sent this one in.
I think that was Dustin. And actually, I have a question for y'all. If you click on Setup again.
Let me go back. Actually, go to Summit Drive.
So this, the preferences class is used widely on the phones and the tablets, which is what it looks like this is using. But I noticed more or less the settings on and look and feel on Google TV is more or less just kind of a dialogue that pages through. What are your recommendations for something like that, for settings within an app? Do you prefer the dialogue that just gives you more or less a list of 3 buttons that takes you deeper, or do you prefer this preferences type layout?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the dialogue over this is that with using this approach, you're actually stretching the information across the entire display, which isn't always the greatest, the most efficient use of space. So with the dialogue, it's actually kind of overlaying, and it's not quite as wide. So I think it would be a little easier to navigate for the user.
Yeah. I think it also depends on how frequently you expect a user to dive into the settings or to use them. If this is something that you do to, configure the app on more or less a daily basis, then definitely go with something more user-friendly, create your own dialogues. If this is something that 5% of your users will maybe use once or twice, and nobody else ever needs to go there, then I would say don't waste your time and resources making it too pretty. But so for example, I haven't used this app long enough. It seems like a lot of the things you can do here can also be done on the main screen, like enter a hashtag to search. I'm not quite sure why this is in settings. Other things like blocking certain keywords, this is probably something that a lot of people don't use too frequently. Center tweets on screen or not. I think those are things that a lot of people will use infrequently. Things like default language for tweets, I would encourage you to check, basically use the Android APIs, check which language is currently set to. Other things like, for example, show top or bottom, those are things that should maybe not be in the settings. This should maybe be somewhere more accessible from the app.
I was just going to say, on that settings page, there was center tweets in screen ticked, and pretty sure when you ran it, they weren't ticked. They weren't centered, so it possibly has them defined wrong.
Yeah.
So the first time you're going to hear it might actually change the...
Yeah. So right now it's align. The tweeter's image can be left of tweet, right of tweet.
Yeah. There was a tick box couple up, I think.
Yeah.
There's just a note.
That box for the center tweets on screen is for, because if someone sends out a tweet with just one word on it, and their image is all the way to the left on top of your screen, the tweet's going to show all the way up on the left instead of being centered. So you have that option of just keeping your focus on the center of the screen, or if you want your eyes to be all over the place, trying to read their tweets, which are on the right or left.
Right. So it's horizontal. It's horizontal centering, not full centering. Right.
Yeah, this checkbox here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for TV development is really finding a way to make an app very easy approachable, and I want to say foolproof. From the feedback that we get from a lot of our users, and I see a lot of user studies that we do with people who have never used the Google TV. We put a box in front of them for a week or two, and we get their feedback. I mean, I would really encourage you guys, try it out. I mean, get some of your random friends who you maybe go drinking with on the weekend, put them in front of your app for an hour and see how they work the app. We always have to keep in mind, we don't write this for ourselves. I mean, if you create an app for other nerds and geeks and for other developers, you're not going to sell many of those. You really need to create an app for the average person who is watching TV. That's really the target audience that we have. And I think right now, if you look at the default audience for Google TV, yes, it's tech-heavy, it's early adopters, it's typically tech-savvy people. But keep in mind, each tech-savvy people, it's not like a cell phone where you buy the thing, you keep it in your pocket, and you use it. But you have families where maybe one or two people are the early adopters, but the TV is in the living room, and you have friends come by, you have grandparents come by. If your app really is hard to use, it's not going to stay long on TV. I know from my own experience at home.
I guess
So, Christian, you keep mentioning these usability studies you guys have done at Google. Is that something that you could make available to developers or the public so we can look at some of the results you got?
Good question.
Making our user studies available?
Yeah. The insights.
I mean, a lot of it's actually captured in our design guidelines that we've published. I mean, most of what we put in there, things like the left to right navigation, kind of the global versus detailed zones and that type of thing, are really a direct result of what we did in our user studies. So
yes, obviously you guys have got more resources to try this with more people than we could ever do ourselves. So, that's why I'm kind of interested to dig into that data, if possible.
So I don't think it's likely that we'll release our user studies. It's more likely that we'll try to generate more articles and content based on that, like we do with our design guidelines.
Okay.
Most of our user studies is multiple hours of people watching on TV that then needs to be distilled.
What we can do is, so I'll be actually traveling for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks roughly. So I'll be back in basically next month, in April. But sometime what we can try is get one of our UX team members from our user experience team and just have them part of the Hangout. And then you guys can also ask questions and get some first-hand answers from those guys.
Yeah, I mean, and also if you could get one of the UI guys who was involved in the TV and movies app, because that looks like probably the best, point of reference in terms of apps. They've done a lot of subtle things. I mean, some that Nicholas have mentioned, but other things I've noticed. They've done a lot of things there that's very thoughtful, and it would be interesting to kind of see why they did things in certain ways.
Yeah, I'll leave that as a feedback. So Les is going to run the next couple Hangouts here. I'll leave it as feedback for him to see who we can get. I think it's between that, there is the UX, and then I also want to bring the developer marketing person. So I think a couple I think 1 or 2 Hangouts ago, people were asking, basically getting the people who are behind our developer blog and some of our Google TV blogs. So I'll get them. It's just right now is chaos where everyone's getting ready for South by Southwest. Otherwise, I would have actually gotten Catherine on the Hangout today.
Sure.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. Any more questions for this week or anything else? Otherwise, we'll wrap up the Hangout, and since it was on air, we'll publish the recording shortly after.
I think due to travel schedules, we won't have a Hangout next week, and then Les will be back.
Yeah. In case anybody here or who hears it on the air is going to South by Southwest, also check out, there is a developer, I think they call it a developer house. It's basically Google TV guys hanging out there. So there's Catherine and Les will be down there, and a bunch of others.
And then Christian speaking at JoyCon in Berlin. It's next week. And then we'll be in London at the IP and TV World Forum the week after that.
Yep. Big Europe road trip. So I'll see maybe if I can do it from a time zone, I'll dial into the Hangouts, but most likely not. I'll probably be either speaking or tired. All right.
Will you take suggestions?
Thanks, guys.
Will you take suggestions for reviews in that next Hangout? App reviews?
I don't know if Les wants to do app reviews. I would say ask him. He's going to post. So next week, as Osama said, we will basically all of us are traveling. So we're going to skip a week. And the week after that, it's going to be Les. He's going to do the usual routine where he posts the announcement. So just ping him, post in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, but we will continue to do these on alternating Hangouts at least.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.